Okay, as you can see, this Saturday morning is just like one after the other, you know. But we'll enjoy a nice afternoon when we get outside. But kind of finishing up the ecology and wildlife and ecology aspect. Jay Kilian is a natural resource biologist with the Maryland DNR Maryland Biological Stream Survey. So he works with stream systems, and actually kind of a recent addition last year to the schedule to kind of just focus a little bit more on stream and stream ecology as it relates to forests, and with some best management practices and things like that. So he's kindly agreed to come all the way from Hartford County. I think you have to realize the folks that are coming here this morning are coming from quite a distance away to come here and speak to you. So.
Hey, so did we, okay?
So I'll just leave it up to you.
I got this right here.
On that note,
I think we should have a contest for who came the farthest.
I'm at 2 hours.
It's 2 hours.
I'm about to. Oh, you beat me.
4 hours.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, I work with the Resource Assessment Service at DNR down in Annapolis, and we run the project Maryland Biological Stream Survey, which has been going on since about 1995, and it's essentially what it is a statewide assessment of Maryland's stream health, and we look at everything from water pollution, but we focus most of our effort on the biology and let the biology that's present in a stream and river to tell us what the health of that stream is. And so I've had the good, we've been going on since 95, and we've sampled over 3,000 sites across the state, and so I've had a really good opportunity to see the very best streams and rivers in Maryland, what we have, the amazing diversity we have, and what we need to protect. And I've also had the unfortunate opportunity to see the very worst streams we have in Maryland, what we've done to our streams over time. And so today I wanted to, I guess, move a little bit from, a lot of the focus has been on the terrestrial side of things, a lot of your talks, and I'm going to move it, kind of shift the focus to the aquatic side of things and talk about streams and hopefully remind you all of how everything, of course, in the natural world is interconnected. And in order to have a healthy forest on your property, well, in order to have a healthy forest, you need a healthy stream, and vice versa. They are absolutely interconnected, as I'll talk about. So when I talk about streams, and immediately what people tend to come to mind, when you think of streams, you think of larger streams, you think of rivers. And of course, Maryland has some very iconic rivers. Of course, the Potomac River at Harper's Ferry, the Susquehanna River up at Conowingo. These rivers are important, have been important for our focuses around our society, significant in terms of our history, such as Monocacy River and Antietam Creek. So these are immediately what tends to jump to mind, what people's minds tend to jump to when you say Maryland streams. But really, the vast majority of our streams in Maryland look something like this. They're tiny. There are headwater streams, and we have over 10,000 miles of streams in Maryland, and over 90% of those are headwaters. What you see here, streams that are at some points no more than 1 meter wide. And these can be perennial streams that flow all through the year, intermittent streams that only flow during the wet season, and then ephemeral streams like you see up here on the upper right that only flow during periods of rain. And a lot of these are just grass swales. A lot of these streams most people don't even recognize as streams. And these are, I'm sure, on your properties. These are quite often buried. They're paved over. These headwater streams are some of the most abused streams out there. And of course, they are the life and blood of the Chesapeake Bay. The sources of the problems in the Chesapeake Bay start here, and the solutions to the problem in the Chesapeake Bay start here. So we fix our headwaters, we fix the Chesapeake. And the importance of headwater streams to forest ecology, to downstream ecology, can't be overstated. Headwater streams supply food and nutrients to downstream regions. They improve water quality. A lot of these headwater streams feed our reservoirs that provide the municipal drinking waters to our towns and cities. Healthy headwater streams reduce water treatment costs, reduce human health risks. And streams, small headwater streams, streams of all sizes, support a very rich and varied biodiversity. And I could spend an entire day talking about the cool things that you can find in Maryland's streams and rivers. And as Jim just talked about, and he showed that graph of the most imperiled animals and plants that the Nature Conservancy put out a few years ago. The most imperiled groups of animals and plants across all of North America, and remember he pointed out the top four were, actually the top five were all related or associated in some form with freshwater streams and rivers and ecosystems. That's because we've loved our streams and rivers to death. They're extremely important, but we've abused them. And we've turned something that looks like this into something that looks like that. A lot of people don't recognize that that is a stream. We've turned beautiful bottomland swamps into that. And you see this on the Eastern Shore. In fact, if you look at a map of, like an ADC map of Eastern Shore streams, you see this, a lot of streams go like this. That's because we've straightened them. And it's funny, you know, a lot of people don't, these are called tax ditches, and a lot of people don't recognize that these are functioning streams.
Why do they call it tax ditch?
I think it's because some of their taxes goes to maintaining them over the years.
They have like an association that goes along with them, and all the owners along pay into the association to cover the cost of the maintenance of it.
They're not required to keep a 100-foot buffer?
No, obviously not. In fact, when I talked to a lot of farmers on the Eastern Shore, I mean, this was, most of Delmarva was a lowland swamp at one point, and so this was necessary to provide for agriculture and things. But it's funny, even farmers themselves don't recognize them as streams, because I'll go, I've talked to a lot of private farmers on the Eastern Shore and said, hey, do we have your permission to go out and sample the stream out in your field? And he's like, stream? I don't have a stream on my property. That's just a ditch. They fail to recognize that this is flowing water. This is supporting the biota that lives in these ditches and then everything downstream. All right, so I know most of you, I think, are aware of the watershed concept, but I wonder if you all can name the watershed that you live in. And I know everyone can say, well, most of us can say, well, I live in the Chesapeake Bay watershed.
I really do.
I know. But if you take it to a smaller scale, I mean, I live in the Little Gunpowder River watershed, but everyone in Maryland should certainly know that where the rain that falls on their property, what's the nearest named stream that water flows through. You'd be surprised. I've read in newspapers, and I remember reading in Carroll County, and this was back when they were passing the flush tax, and I read a quote from somebody in Carroll County saying, I don't even know why they're taxing us. Why they're taxing us? I don't live anywhere near the Chesapeake Bay. Of course, all of Carroll County flows right to the Chesapeake Bay. So a lot of folks don't know the answer to this question.
The stream or the watershed?
Either, but definitely something more finer scale than.
Do you have a map that would show?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I live in the Seven Rivers.
There are many. Yeah, there's different scales, but yes, I mean, everyone knows that they live in.
Like 2 blocks from the Chesapeake Bay.
Well, that's right. It is the Chesapeake Bay.
Now, how do you find that out? How do I show that to people? Is there local maps of that?
There are maps. There are actually. I'll give you a website at the end of the talk called the Stream Health website. That might be a useful tool for other reasons, but you can zoom into your property and follow the flow of water.
A lot of the ADC maps show all those streams. So, are you familiar with those streams?
Where is that?
It's right on Falls Road.
Yeah. Okay.
They run an Indian Run intersect on my property. Is that my watershed?
Yeah, certainly. Well, yes.
There's typically named watersheds, though.
Yeah.
And plus, you're in more than one watershed.
You are. It's all nested within. It's just something. It's good to start thinking about, right? Okay, so everything. The health of a stream is directly related to what's going on in the watershed, and of course, poor land practices, both present and past, have greatly affected Maryland streams and continue to do so. If you were to look at a really good functioning stream ecosystem. This is, this is simplified, but this is basically what you would see. You would see in a good stream, you would see high amounts of woody debris, organic matter, very heterogeneity and very complex habitat types, of good variety of habitat, high dissolved oxygen, high water quality, and usually high numbers of species. Also low temperatures, low levels of sedimentation, low bank erosion, low levels of pollutants, and either zero or just a few non-native species. This is what a typical good stream would look like, and as you develop upstream, not using the best management practices, you put in a sprawling Walmart parking lot, for an example, with not very good stormwater management practices, you will shift that stream, and you will cause a decrease, that stream to look more like this, a stream with lower woody debris amounts, lower organic matter, every species richness declines, and a lot of the bad things, the sediment, the bank erosion, the pollutants, invasive species tends to increase. So this is just generally what happens with poor land use practices. And through the Maryland Biological Stream Survey that is now done what we call 3 rounds of MBSS, where we've gone across the state sampling and assessed the health of our streams three times since 1995. Essentially all 3 rounds say have a very similar picture, that about 50% of our streams are in what we consider to be poor condition, and are streams that are on the list of impaired waters, what they call the 303D report. Now this report comes out of the Federal Clean Water Act, and every state in the U.S. is required to assess the health of their flowing waters and identify impaired waters, and then eventually work towards fixing the problems. Now, to fix 50% of our streams right now, and they're impaired for various reasons, for low dissolved oxygen, for high nutrients, for high levels of other pollutants, for biological impairment where the communities are just not what they should be. If we could actually fix every one of the problems, it's going to cost us all millions of dollars. So it's very expensive to fix streams that are broken. It's far more cost effective to protect streams before they get to this level.
Could you talk a little bit about the TMDL, how that is with what you source there?
Well, the TMDL is it's under the jurisdiction of our sister agency, the Maryland Department of Environment, which is our regulatory environmental agency. TMDL is the total maximum daily load, and for a pollutant of pollutant X, you name the pollutant, if that's identified as the cause of the impairment, then they work to set a limit to the amount of that pollutant that can go into the watershed. And if if that watershed is exceeding it, then they work to reduce that level of pollution. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But I'm definitely not the person to talk to you about TMDL. But either way, a development of a TMDL and implementation of a TMDL costs a lot of money. Costs us all. Okay, poor land use practices have caused the loss of stream species, and this happens as what we were talking about at various spatial scales. There's a lot of stream reaches in Maryland that used to have 10 species that now have 5 because they've been degraded to the point where they can't support that biodiversity. But we've lost them. We've lost species in entirety from Maryland, and fishes is a good example. Here are 6 species that were once in Maryland that are no longer present. And some of these, most of these, this extirpation has happened within our lifetime. Trout perch was over 100 years ago, so that was before our time. But all of these others have been within the past 50 years, and many have been within the past 25 or 30. So this is something that's happening now, real time. And it's said some of these, all of these on the bottom list right here, the bottom 5 are found in other states, but are no longer found within Maryland borders. The Maryland darter, that's a permanent extinction, if that truly is an extinct fish, which it's looking that way. Maryland darter, as Jim mentioned, is only found 3 streams in Harford County, hasn't been seen in 24 years, and it's looking like it's gone. Now, of course, poor land use practices we don't know exactly what caused these species to disappear, but certainly poor land use practices didn't help. Okay, and poor land use practices, of course, in our watersheds has led to the decline of Chesapeake Bay. And I think most of you are probably familiar with the dead zones that occur in the Chesapeake Bay in the middle of the summer. This graph was from 2003, directly result of excess nutrients entering the Chesapeake Bay, all from our headwater streams. So to fix the Chesapeake Bay, we have to save and fix our headwater streams. And now that's where a lot of the focus for the Chesapeake Bay initiatives, that's where a lot of the focus is, up into our headwaters. Okay, so as woodland stewards, as landowners, what are steps that you can take to maintain stream health on your properties? And I think I have about 5 here. The most important, absolutely, is just trees, trees, trees. It can't be understated how important trees are to the health of a stream. So maintain and enhance streamside buffers at all costs, and if you have a steep slided valley, the higher the sloping land, the larger buffers you should maintain. Trees are so important. They provide the food base to streams. All of the organic matter in the forms of leaves, branches, the trees themselves, if they fall in the stream, they all fall in there. That organic matter provides the energy source in a stream. And so as soon as it hits the water, it immediately gets colonized by bacteria and fungi, which then gets fed upon by insects and other invertebrates, and that energy moves through and up the food chain. And it doesn't just stay within the aquatic ecosystem. Many of as Jim was talking about the stoneflies and mayflies, caddisflies, many of these important insects have larval stages that occur in the streams in fresh water. And they emerge and they become, and all that energy is transported back into the terrestrial ecosystem. Trees maintain cool stream temperatures. Some of you might have properties where brook trout are present, our only native trout species. Brook trout require very cool temperatures. And the canopy provided by a very good stream buffer works to keep that stream temperature nice and cool. This brook trout are disappearing in the eastern Piedmont, in large part due to development pressures and changes in water temperature. Trees create stream habitat. A fallen tree, logs. Years ago, this was a nuisance, and Army Corps of Engineers would go in and remove any trees that fall in streams and rivers. This is critical for shaping the channel, for creating complex habitat in streams, creating pools, slow water areas. The trees are very important in that respect. And goes without saying, streams work to stabilize stream banks so you don't have erosion. So if you can, however you're managing your property, it's best to just leave the trees in place along the edge of the stream and avoid removing them. And we've done this everywhere. You've seen it. And it's amazing how many millions every county and the state spends you've seen the large riprap boulders that they put to protect stream banks that are eroding. If we hadn't removed the trees in the first place, we wouldn't have to do that. So it's amazing how much money we have to spend once the trees are gone. And of course, trees reduce runoff, reduce nutrient and sediment moving into the systems. So the golden rule for trees is just let it be. All of even trees that fall across will eventually make their way into the stream, and these, again, form the food base. They create the complexity in the habitat and are very beneficial for streams and the biota that lives there. Also, the golden rule is prevent sedimentation. Sediment is a stream killer. It's the #1 pollutant in the U.S. waters. Of course, sediment comes from terrestrial sources in form of runoff, but it also comes from the in-stream sources. And when you put impervious surface in a watershed, sidewalks and rooftops and parking lots, the energy, the stormwater that flows off, the energy that comes into that stream during a rain event is increased, and you get the stream actually carving its way and carving into sediment that's been stored in the stream banks. And so you have in-stream sources as well. And sediment's a killer. When you have excessive sediment in the stream, you see sensitive species drop out. You typically see species richness decline because habitat complexity declines. And a lot of the important gravels and cobbles and the spaces in between the substrate that a lot of insects that require gets covered up and smothered. And it just takes a little bit of sediment to really cause a change in the substrate, in the biota that lives there. And then as you smother this, the nutrient retention and the watershed, the ecological services that the stream provide decline. Pesticides, some of these are a necessity, especially for fighting invasive plants, for fighting ag pests, things of that nature. Avoid spraying over open water. And of course, a pesticide aimed to control a one-target species, there's always non-targets that are affected as well. So if you keep that in mind, that's important. And I'm not sure if you've all heard of the intersex problem in bass in the Potomac and in the Susquehanna, and it's been identified in a few lakes and impoundments on Delmarva Peninsula as well. This is male smallmouth and largemouth bass having eggs in their testes. So they're showing intersex, which is weird. And it's been, to say the least, right?
Can I quote you on that?
Yes. It's really, to me, it's so gross because the Potomac River and the Shenandoah, the cause for this is, it's still being studied. But something called endocrine disruptors is the leading theory at this point in time. And this is just low levels of pharmaceuticals, of estrogen, of everything that passes through the human body that we put in it, goes into a wastewater treatment plant that's not removed by wastewater treatment, that then goes into the Potomac River and then goes downstream to the next municipality that then pulls that water in to treat it for drinking water. So it's gross. These chemicals are cycling through humans multiple times, and of course it's likely causing what we see here, and God knows what it's causing in us, right? It kind of creeps me out, for sure.
Are those fish able to actually reproduce? Are they sterile?
I think they are. I mean, it's usually like, low level, like oocytes in low levels in the bass, but it's weird. And I don't know the details, but there's a woman named Vicki Blazer that's been working on this problem for a long time, and certainly if you did a Google search, you can find out a lot about this.
There's guys in my office who are working on it too.
Yeah. Folks at the University of Maryland Y Research and Education Center have done some work on this with impoundments. Is that who you're talking about? Oh, Lance Yankos, and they've done some work on this with the Delmarva lakes and impoundments, and they're linking it to the estrogen running off of chicken farms. And as those
probably like a chemical cocktail, fertilizers, and liquids, all that stuff's combined to do. It's scary. I'm with you too.
Yeah, it is.
I'm with you too.
Okay. Fourth, prevent the introduction and proliferation of non-native plant species. There's a talk coming up after this, but many of you are probably familiar with this if you own land. The problem with non-native plants like mile a minute, Japanese hops, Japanese stilt grass, wavy leaf basket grass, you name it. They take over and they prevent forest regeneration, and definitely over time will affect the food base in streams. And lastly, always, no matter what you're doing, whether it's timber harvest or managing for other wildlife, always think big picture at the watershed scale. To have a healthy forest, you have to have a healthy stream, and it goes both ways. Streams are very important for terrestrial biodiversity. And
and there's a map within that website that you can zoom in, and it'll tell you your guys' score.
Yes.
The streams.
Yeah, I'm going to show that link, the Stream Health website, and yeah, you can find a lot of information in your backyard. So just lastly, just one last thought to leave you with here, that relationship, that interconnectedness that I mentioned between healthy forests and healthy streams, it's been proven, and it's real by some really really cool research that's been going on and in recent years. And essentially what this guy, Dr. Nakano in Japan did, and there's other ecologists working from North America as well on this problem, but one guy in Japan was looking at this relationship and trying to understand it and trying to figure out a way to study it. And he came up with this idea. Driving down the road, he saw one of those long plastic tube greenhouses. And what he did was he took that, and I'm sure he got a lot of grad students for dirt cheap, and he covered the stream with that dome greenhouse. And he did that for 1 kilometer, 1 full kilometer of stream. And what he was doing, he was breaking that connection. And so he was isolating the terrestrial ecosystem from the aquatic, from the stream ecosystem. And before that, of course, he had a bunch of other researchers looking at various wildlife in the terrestrial ecosystem: lizards, spiders, bats, birds, and in the aquatic ecosystem, the game fishes, the non-game, the invertebrates, and the insects. And so he had a baseline. Then he covered it and sealed it. And then they went back and looked. And they monitored the populations of all those things following. And what he found was everything, the health of the terrestrial ecosystem declined. You let fewer bats, fewer birds, fewer lizards, spiders, all of that. And same thing in the stream ecosystem. So together, they're healthier than they are functioning separately. Pretty eloquent research there. So again, healthy forests, healthy streams. Keep that in mind. And here are the websites that I was referring to. This stream health. Okay, so this is the Maryland Biological Stream Survey. This is our project, and you can go there for just tons of reading material that will bore you probably to death, a lot of it. But some of it you'll find interesting, I think. We have fact sheets. We have if you're interested in stream biodiversity, we have a lot of information on that. If you're interested in learning more of how to identify things like amphibians, reptiles, mussels, crayfish, fishes, we have the identification keys for Maryland on this website, and you can download PDFs and print them off, and so it's good stuff. And then Maryland Stream Health website has taken our Maryland Biological Stream Survey and our volunteer survey, which is the Stream Waders. Anyone heard of Maryland Stream Waders? That all those data have been compiled and put onto this Maryland Stream Health website, which is a map-based search thing. And so you can, if you're interested in your property, you can zoom in on your property, and you will see the stream network, and you will see where some of our sites have fallen. And you can click on those sites, and it'll kick back a list. It'll kick back a score of the quality of that stream, what insects were collected there, what fishes, and give you a whole bunch of information. So it might be very useful.